All right. So I want to look at last week. We had just one lesson, and I got good news for this week too. So we're kind of slowing down just a little bit. We've been pretty heavy on the pace for the last month and a half. We're slowing down just a little bit here. So let's go. Last week was week 10. So all we had was the one video lesson and the notes that went with it, and then one assignment, lesson 10. One lesson 10 assignment, which is right over here. I'll pull it up as a preview. I don't even think it had 10 questions in it, did it? I think it was short. It loads so slow, informative. Oh, there were 7 questions. Had 7 questions for it. And 4 of them were based right off this functions right here at the beginning, these 2 functions. And then after that, you had where you got to fill out the function yourself and graph it. And then write the domain and range. And that was it. That was the entire lesson for last week. So that's all we had. This week, we just have the final learning checkpoint in College Board for Unit 1. We're not going to do a new lesson. We're going to click on here, see where it takes us. I'm sure I got to sign in when I get there. Okay, whose screen can I use? Sign into College Board, and it'll take you to the learning checkpoint for Unit 1. This is the last thing for Unit 1 in College Board, our last learning checkpoint. And I think it's like 10 questions, and they should be all multiple choice. And it's still spinning and spinning. It's hard to see, but it's spinning and spinning up here. And I don't even know if it's going to load. But it's all stuff we've already gone over. There's nothing new this week. Nothing new. That's like yippee, yippee. Nothing new. College Board does not allow me to preview the checkpoint, so I had to assign it sight unseen. But we've covered all the units that College Board wanted covered, so everything that we learned should be in this learning checkpoint. Okay, it's going to sit there and spin forever. Let me try one more time. After having already signed in, maybe it'll pull up something. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Verify. Okay, well, hopefully it's going to work better for you than it is for me today. But that's all we have. I will spend a little time reviewing lesson 10, since last week we just had the video lesson. But for lesson 10, we talked about piecewise last week. If you haven't watched that lesson, you need to go back and watch it, because I'm not going to redo the whole lesson here today. But piecewise functions means we take more than one function and we take a piece of this one and a piece of this one, maybe a piece of another one, how many pieces we want to build it out of, and we put them all together to be one thing. And this one will go up to here, and wherever this one stops, that's usually where this one starts, and it'll be here. And then the next one will be over there. So for this, I've got 2 functions listed, f of x and g of x. And they are both piecewise functions, which means they're both made up of pieces of other functions. So f of x, it has this function, 3/2 x minus 5. Here, in fact, I can highlight that a little better. Okay, so just make that the screen. There's 2 functions. There's this one, 3/2 x minus 5. That is one of the functions. That is part of f of x. That is the first piece. And we only use that piece when x is less than -6. If x is greater than -6 or equal to -6, we have to go down to the other function. Use the red pen. Here's the other function, -1 minus 4x. We only use that if x is greater than or equal to -6. So there's 2 pieces. So if you make a table, if you're going to graph this, you make a table, one table, you need to use the first function, and the only x's you would put on the table were x's that were less than -6. And you would usually use -6. -6 is the obvious breaking point. So you need to find out what this would be at -6, just because -5.99 is part of this other one, but -6.01 is part of this one. How is it different? You got to think about right next to -6 before you get to -7 or before you're at -5. Either way, you need to know both functions, what they are at -6. The difference is when you graph it, since this one is just less than, you would use a hollow circle where this is equal to, so you would color in the circle down here. So both of them would have a circle at -6, both graphs, both pieces of the graph. Just one of them would be hollow because it's not included. The other one would be filled in because it is included. So knowing that, this doesn't have us graph this one. It just has us calculate f of 9. F of 9 uses that first function. So f of 9, well, let's see. If x equals 9, we got to figure out, are we going to use this yellow one or the red one? X is less than -6. Is 9 less than -6? No, of course 9 is not less than -6. It's greater than that. So that means we're going to use this function. So in that case, when it's 9, we would say -1 minus 4 times 9. Because we would substitute it in for the x in that function right there. Substitute in for the x. And whatever that equals would be what f of 9 is. F of 9. A little sloppy. F of 9 would equal whatever this calculates out to be. That would be your answer for f of 9. All right, so that's how this works. Some of these are f, some of these are g. So for the g functions, there's 3 pieces. Use this first piece up here when the x is less than or equal to -3. Use the second equation if -3 is smaller than x, but x is smaller than 5. So that means anytime between -3 and 5, that would include 4.98888. If x is in between those two numbers, you're using this equation. And if it's 5 or larger, you're going to use -2. So like g of 7, it equals -2. G of 100, it equals -2. G of 4,820, it equals -2. Because anytime x is larger than 5, it just equals -2. There's no calculating to do because there's no x. There's nowhere to substitute an x there. It just always equals -2 when the x makes it to 5 and beyond. So that is the first 4. After that, you had to graph this. So when I click on this, I went ahead and filled in these. I was working on this last week. And I said, well, when it's less than or equal to -4 or greater than -4. So -4 is the breaking point. So for the first equation, it's when it's less than or equal to -4. So I made -4, -5, -6, -7. I made all the x less than. The other one's only when it's greater than. So I started at -4 because I need to know what it is. So I'm going to put a hollow circle there, hollow circle. But I went ahead and figured out the x's that are next, that are larger than. So you would graph those. Graph this one and graph this one. Use the hollow circle and a solid circle. All right. And after doing that, then you give the domain, which is what all x's are covered, and the range, what all y's are covered. That was last week. That is covered in more detail in last week's video lesson. So if you have not watched last week's video lesson, there's a grade for watching that in the grade book, just to know who watched it and who didn't. So you need to make sure you watch that. It's not very long, but you need to watch that for last week. So that's it. I don't have anything else to give to you this week. Like I say, we don't have any new information. I just reviewed a little bit of last week's information for those of you who haven't looked at it and haven't completed last week's yet. And there are a few of you, but I want to make sure that's been covered in class. So final learning checkpoint, which never did load for me, but for the teacher account, it does weird stuff a lot of times. So I won't mess with that. All right. Anyone have any questions? It's an easier week. Again, I'm giving you a chance to get caught up. There's a few of you that are behind. And so one lesson last week, one lesson this week. You've got time to get caught up. So if you don't have any questions, I'll let you go. I will not be here Wednesday or Thursday. So email me if you need something on Wednesday. But have a great week.